Hello and welcome back to my Train Simulator Reskin tutorial series. So in this episode we're going to take a look at actually creating the reskin itself and editing the texture files in your image editor of choice. I'm going to be using paint.net for this tutorial series. So essentially what you're going to want to do first of all is go to your web browser of choice, and if you're using paint.net like I am in this series, then you're going to want to use the Alpha Transform plugin. This is the one that I use. There are, as far as I'm aware, other sort of alpha plugins available. This is one that I use. Feel free to take your pick if you want to choose a different one. So it's Alpha Transform 1.1. Essentially, you're going to want to download that plugin and place it in the paint.net plugins folder. Once you've got that plugin installed, what you're going to want to do is open up paint.net like so. I've also installed the bulk bait plugin pack. Very good plugin pack. There's a wide selection of different adjustments and effects in that pack. I would highly recommend it if you are using paint.net. To confirm you've got those plugins, if you click on adjustments, you'll notice at the top we've got Alpha Transform, and you'll notice some of these other plugin ones courtesy of bulk bait. Few adjustments, and also there's a number of effects as well provided. So what we're going to want to do first and foremost, now I've got paint.net all set up ready to go, is in the class 166 First Great Western folder. What we're going to want to do is make a copy of that folder. So I'm just going to call it copy and paste, and we're going to call it First Great Western, and we're going to say green door. So what I'm going to do is essentially, just to give you a quick overview of creating a reskin, I'm going to essentially change the pink door into a green door basically. So what we're going to want to do now inside this folder is we're going to want to open up this texture file, the 166_main, in RS bin tool. So what we can do is go to RS bin tool, open, and going to navigate to that class 166 folder, First Great Western green door, textures 166_main. And you'll notice here this is essentially our texture file for the entire train. You'll see we've got the two at the bottom there, the two driver consists, and the top there, the MOS unit. So what we're going to want to do, DDS tool, you're going to want to export DDS data, and you can simply call it, I generally call it the same as the TGPCDX file for ease, so 166_main, save that, data successfully exported like so. What we can now do is open up this into paint.net, and you'll notice it looks really weird and transparent. What you can do is go to the Alpha Transform, invert the alpha values, drag that slider right up to the top, hit OK, and then essentially we can save that. You'll notice in the top left, DXT5 selected, it may be DXT1 by default. In the RS bin tool, it helpfully lets us know what option we should be using when we save it. So in this case we want the compression to be DXT3. So you're going to want to select DXT3 from the list. I always get it with the highest quality, leave it as just perceptual error metric, and you're also going to want to generate bitmaps as well. So what you can do, hit OK, and this is now saved, and we are now ready to edit this texture file. So you'll notice you've got up here, you've got the sort of the front, the roof, steps, etc. Over here you've got the sort of door controls, you've got the danger overhead live wire, you've got the headlights just to here, you've then got the roof, you've then got the size of the trains themselves, and some of the labels and stickers, etc. So So what we're going to want to do, you can edit this to obviously heart's content, creating a completely different, reskin for a different company. Just to save a bit of time, I'm just going to literally recolor the doors to be green instead of pink. So I'm going to come down here and select a dark green, and essentially I'm just going to go over these doors like so. Literally just a quick sort of couple of minute job, and select those with the magic wand like so. Copy that, paste it down here like so. Copy that and paste it across to here again like so. You notice I'm not particularly lining up any sort of edges or anything major sort of like that, just a rough sort of overview. What you can then do, save that, and essentially this will now essentially give us that First Great Western livery with some ugly green doors which clash pretty horrendously with the blue purplish colour. So what you're going to want to do before we then save this into the game is go to Adjustments, Alpha Transform. You want to basically reset these values back to their defaults, and you'll notice it generates again this transparent image that we started off with. So when you're happy, you can click on OK, and then you can also, if you have the bulk bait plugins installed, you can fiddle about with the sort of transparency. Essentially, if it's not at all if it's opaque, then it will be really glossy in game, and if it's almost completely transparent, then it will be matte in game. So the more transparent, the more matte it is, and the more opaque it is, the more gloss it is. So I generally sort of give it a value generally around the sort of 60-ish sort of mark. You can fill about with that and define it however you want. I will just save that again. And essentially that is now the texture file ready to be re-encoded back into the tgpcdx file. So what we can do, now we've got that done, we can come back into the RS bin tool, and if we go into the DDS tool and import DDS data, and if we then import this file, you should get data successfully imported, like so. If you get any errors there, it could be because you haven't saved with the right DXT format, or you may not have ticked the generate bitmaps button. If you then scroll down, you'll see we've got our hideous looking green doors, like so. What you can then do is save that tgpcdx file, and then that is now the texture editing done. So like I say, you can pause the video here, you can completely overhaul that livery. I'm just doing some green doors just because it's fairly quick, easy to do. So once you're done with that, you can close the RS bin tool like so. You'll notice we've got these two files now edited at the same time. You can also now close paint.net. We're done in there. And what we're going to do now is edit the bin files, etc., so that they point to this new First Great Western green door. So what we're going to want to do, in the DMOCL, we are going to want to open up this bin file here. We can edit this with Notepad++, and it says here class 166 DMOCL. We'll call that First Great Western green door, and I will just copy and paste that into the English. You can leave the sort of French, Italian, German, etc. I tend to remove these because I tend not to translate, but you can obviously fill in as many of these as you want to. What we're also going to want to do, you'll see we are referring to the default numbers, so we can change that to First Great Western green door, like so. And if we then scroll down, we've got the name here, call that green door. Again, copy and paste that. I tend to leave the translations blank. Again, you can fill those in as you see fit. Scrolling further down, you don't need to worry about destinations because the class 166 obviously notorious for not having functioning destinations, so you can leave that as it is. If you were reskinning your train with destinations, then you would change that default to First Great Western Green Door, the name of our folder directory. This is what you're going to want to edit, Green Door, and again, Green Door there. Essentially that points to the geo file in the Green Door directory. That geo file in turn points to the textures that we've edited, essentially in the textures folder. Scrolling further down, generally that is all you need to do. So now that we've got that all done and happy, we can close that. What we can then do is open it with the search, just double click, and you'll see it's then overwritten the bin file. That is all good. We can get rid of the XML, we don't need that anymore. What we can then do is do the same thing for the DMOS. Again, open that one up, edit the XML with Notepad++, and exactly the same of what we were just doing. Give it the Green Door, leave the translations blank, because I don't know the translation of Green Door in all those languages, sadly. Change the default to First Great Western Green Door for the numbers. Scroll down past the couplings, and we get to the engine name, which you can fill in like so. Oop. Leave those translations blank. And finally, last but not least, we're going to want to then do the DMOS. So we can copy paste the Green Door bit into there to make sure it refers to the geo files in our Green Door directory and not the ones in the default First Great Western directory. Then we can not worry about any of those values. So that's that one closed and done. Again, double click to re-encode it back to the bin file. That's that one done. And then last but not least, you'll see the MOS. Do the same thing with this bin file, edit with Notepad++ on the XML, and we can paste in the Green Door, get rid of the translations like so. Again with the numbers, you can change that to First Great Western Green Door, and if you then scroll down, exactly the same as what we've been doing. We then edit the engine name itself, leaving the translations blank, like so. And if we then scroll down, we'll do the geo files as we were doing previously. Scroll down and you'll notice we have a passenger view. So if you were to edit the passenger view essentially, which you would do with most reskins, when you get a bit more complex than just changing the door colour, you will want to change this default again to First Great Western Green Door in this case. And then exactly the same as what we've been doing, you can then edit the passenger view files. I'll show you where those are. If you go into the class 166 default, you'll see here's a passenger view folder, and here you have the bin and geo files, and in textures here, these are the textures essentially which make up the passenger view. So if you wanted to change the passenger view for that First Great Western Green Door reskin we're doing, then you would copy and paste the passenger view folder into here, and then you would change that default to First Great Western Green Door, and then all you'd have to do is edit the passenger view texture files exactly like we did with the main train texture files, save it, open it up, import it in the RS bin tool, and then ensuring that this bit's changed. That should then show up as the modified passenger view in game. So now that we've got that all done and modified, we can close that, back into the MOS, open the XML. You'll see it's then modified that bin file. We can then get rid of that XML file. If you were doing a reskin for a different TOC, for example, train operating company, then you may want to edit the numbers that it uses by default. We won't change those obviously because we've still got First Great Western livery, just with some very ugly looking doors. Last but not least, in the rail simulator folder, you're going to want to go to preload, Oxford Paddington, and we're going to create a copy of the First Great Western preload consist. Going to call that Green Door. We're going to open that one up with SIRS and then edit the XML with Notepad++. As you can see here, we're going to want to just change the First Great Western to First Great Western Green Door. exactly the same as what we have been doing previously. And we can call it dynamic lines green door 3 cars, like so. So we can now save that preload consist, open it with sirs, and you'll notice we've now updated the bin file itself. So that is now the preload created for our green door reskin, and then we've also of course got the green door texture file like so, and also the DMO, CL, etc. all of the bin files edited as you would with any reskin. It's probably worth pointing out that generally I would tend to give these underscores when I'm actually creating the proper reskins themselves. You'll find if you are downloading one of my reskin packs as an example, feel free to follow the naming conventions that I've laid out with underscores and the numbering, etc. I won't go through those in this guide because it's just a sort of basic overview of how to create a reskin itself, but do feel free to download one of my reskin packs and you'll see exactly how I name everything accordingly, so feel free to follow that as a naming convention if you like. Now we've got that all set up though, we can view that reskin in game. So I will go into Train Simulator like so, preparing to launch. It does take a while to launch Train Simulator, especially when you've got a large number of DLC installed, so it will take a couple of minutes. But essentially this will now enable us to go to the quick drive option in the drive menu and then select that train that we have just modified, and we should then be able to drive it. So I'll give Train Simulator a few minutes to load up and I will be back when we got through to the main menu. So as you can see here, we are now in the main menu for Train Simulator. So what I'm going to do is go to the drive option in the main menu, give that the few seconds or so that it loads up all of the consists, and if we go to quick drive, just select the Glasgow Airport rail link because that's a fast route to load, it's a fairly small route. If we then come in to choose the locomotive consist, give that a little bit of time to load all the consists up, and you'll notice if we scroll through we should have the class 166, and if we keep going, there we go, so we've got the class 166 network of turbo. If we then select that, and you'll see that we have got a dynamic lines green door 3 cars like so. So what we can do is we can click on start and give that a few minutes to load, which it will take.